Welcome guys to another episode of New Tool Tuesday. In this video, I'm going to be talking about impact drivers, and I'm going to be telling you that bigger is not always better. So back in the day, pneumatic tools used to be the way to go. These things were very good tools to remove lug nuts, to remove suspension components, and other parts of the vehicle that required a lot of torque to remove each component. So these pneumatic tools, they're kind of outdated. They still work, they still do the trick now, and you can get great results out of these kind of tools. However, to use one of these things, you always need to be hooked up to an airline. So what has come out recently is electric versions of these impact drivers. So nowadays you have a tool that looks like this. This is an electric impact driver, and this here has a braking torque of 1,300 foot-pounds. This does an amazing job at removing bolts, removing lug nuts, and removing a whole bunch of things. However, this is pretty bulky. And the same kind of thing goes for one of these. So a new tool like this is going to be a little bit bigger than the old school stuff, but at the same time, this is completely portable. You don't need to bring your airline with you. You don't need to be hooked up to an air compressor or anything else like that to get this to work. If you want to go to the racetrack or you're stuck on the side of the road, this will always work for you. You just have to make sure that the batteries are powered up. This tool does an amazing job at removing lug nuts, removing suspension components, and other parts in the vehicle. However, it's a pretty bulky system. This here weighs just over 8 pounds. This thing does the trick, and I've never had any problems removing any kind of bolt with this tool. Now what I'm getting to is you don't necessarily need something this big and bulky. In today's video of New Tool Tuesday, I'm going to be introducing this 1/2-inch impact driver from Dewalt that does the trick that I think is going to be perfect for you. This 1/2-inch driver is a lot bigger, it's a lot more powerful, it can hold a lot more charge with these larger batteries, it's a lot more expensive, but at the end of the day, you don't necessarily need this really big impact gun. This new one that I have right here from Dewalt is a smaller version of that. So that is a DCF 899, this is a DCF 894. It has the same 1/2-inch detent anvil on the end of it, and you can remove so many things with this little tool. Now, look at the size difference of this. This here is literally half the weight and half the size as this big one. Do you need this big one? Not really. This big tool I do use from time to time, but now that I have this little one, I use this thing literally whenever I can. I need to go ahead and perform a tire rotation on the Accord. So I need to switch around the position of all the tires, which means I need to remove each and every one of the lug nuts that are holding the wheels onto the car. So that's gonna give me a prime opportunity to test out this new little tool of mine. So this is the smaller version of that large impact tool that you saw, and this is with my 21mm socket attached to it. So it goes on there, and I wanna see if I can remove each and every one of these without an issue. So the torque spec for each one of these lug nuts is 80 foot-pounds of torque. So let's see if this little tool can break through that 80 foot-pounds. So we've got 3 settings on the gun. We have down here low, medium, and high. So we're gonna go to the high setting because we wanna see if we can remove this easily. So on the high setting, not a problem. Didn't even crack a sweat. Okay, so let's try that on the medium setting. Let's see if we can remove it. Did that too. Low setting, let's see if we can do that. Look at that, didn't even break a sweat. So I'm gonna do the same thing and remove the next 2. It didn't seem like this tool was stressed at all taking off those lug nuts. So I wanna put it to a more difficult test and see if it can remove lug nuts from a 2500 HD work truck. So with our same Dewalt tool, I wanna see if it can break off the lug nuts on this truck. So each one of these lug nuts is torqued up to 140 foot-pounds of torque. So if it can take these off, you know, this isn't gonna have any problem taking off any other wheel from any car. So what do you guys think it's gonna be able to do? Take it off? Keep it on? What do you think? Ready? Here's the moment of truth. So, on loosening setting, we're on high. So let's try another one. Takes them out like it's nothing. So it seemed like neither of those lug nuts were any kind of match for this tool here. So what I'm gonna try next is I wanna see if I can remove or at least loosen the axle nut found on the front end of my Honda. The axle nuts on most vehicles are very tight to begin with, and when they're there for a long time, it takes even more torque to remove it than the actual torque it needs to tighten it and secure that nut onto the axle shaft. So if I can turn this and loosen it, I'll be quite impressed. So I have a little mark on the top side of the socket. If we can get that to turn, I'll be quite content. So, hope you guys can see the little yellow mark. Yeah, so it seems like that's a little bit too much for this little gun here, but at the end of the day, this tool is rated for 330 foot-pounds of maximum braking torque. So if you're using this to remove lug nuts and simple stuff like that, this thing is an amazing tool and is perfect for you. Let's see if the big boy one can remove this without a problem. Not a problem. So there's the axle nut. So it goes to show that the big tool is really nice whenever you're in a pinch, but if you don't ever really have to use a big tool or you're not really removing a lot of high torque bolts, that little one will be perfectly fine for you. So a couple more things just to consider. If you guys use this tool to remove each one of, let's say, your lug nuts, you have to be sure to tighten them and torque them properly up to the manufacturer's spec. So you can remove it completely with this tool. You can install them by just tightening them slightly onto the threads. However, you need to follow it up afterwards with a proper torque wrench so that you get the proper torque. So if each one of those lug nuts are tightened up to 80 foot-pounds, you need to make it so that they're tightened back up later to 80 foot-pounds. You can't just go ahead and put this on the max setting, zip it on, and call it a day, because at that point, you're gonna be over-torquing all your lug nuts or whatever you're torquing. If you're removing the lug nuts from that truck, they're 140 foot-pounds. If you're removing the axle nuts, let's say for instance, you're gonna have to tighten those back up. For my Honda, it's 243 foot-pounds. So be sure that you have a torque wrench that's capable of getting to that high of torque before you go ahead and remove it, whether it be with this small tool or this big one. There's a time and place for each of these tools. I find this to be a lot more versatile and a lot more, user-friendly, should I say, because you can use this on so many different applications. You can use this on a lot more things, however, it's a lot bulkier. So if you guys were to buy one of these two, if you guys don't have either of them, I would say buy this one here, because this is gonna be a very useful and very friendly tool. You can bring this wherever you want, it does the trick, it's got a light built into it, it's got multiple settings on it, and it works with any of the Dewalt 20-volt batteries. If you guys want to find out more information about this tool or even pick one up for yourselves, you guys can check out the description box. There's going to be more information in there for you. If you guys have any recommendations for new tools to be featured on New Tool Tuesday, comment sections down there. If you got any other questions, comment sections down there as well. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.